Hi there. This week we're talking about play, and today we're going to talk about 6 months to 12 months of age. Remember, we're doing the deep dive of really breaking it down because so much happens in these early years up until 3 years old. So today we're going to do like we did yesterday. We're going to talk about the social components, the fine and gross motor skills, play, and all of that will tell us about the developmental milestones of this age group. So socially, what should your child typically be doing from 6 months to 12 months old? Well, they show dependence on their caregiver, so you're still getting up with them, they're still asking you to do things non-verbally. They interact briefly with other infants, so they might go over, be interested, and come back. They can give and take a toy, so they might give you something, but then they want it back pretty quickly. When they look in a mirror, they respond playfully. They might make silly faces at themselves or laugh at themselves because they're recognizing who they are in the mirror. They socially lift their arms up for their grown-up to pick them up. So you see them raising their arms. They know what that means. And they kind of can cooperate with dressing, although if you've ever dressed a 6 to 12 month old, they can be pretty wiggly. So that's the social components. Cognitively, so in intelligence, what they're figuring out, they respond to their name. They will know their name, Jenna, my name, and I would look as an infant. They recognize certain words and family names, so they would recognize sibling names, the family pet, mom and dad as names. They selectively listen. So if you say stop or, a typical phrase that you always use, they might understand what that means as well. And they imitate gestures. If you think about if you were to say, oh, it's time for lunch, or it's time to eat, or something that they might know to use typically, they might shrug their shoulders, they might say no, or point their finger without the words, but they might shrug their shoulders. They might use all of those gestures. They could be smaller than that as well. They look at picture books. So this is when we were talking about bilateral coordination last week, where they would start to hold a book and flip through the pages of board books. They act with intention with objects. So, they would start to play with toys in a way that they were meant to be played with. Going along with that, this is where a shape sorter would come in from 6 to 12 months would be great. I don't have it, it's at my office, but I have all of these things that Emily made that we opened the other week. Kids at this age love to put things into a container and take them out. So a shape sorter would be wonderful because you're putting things in and taking things out. Let's see, they respond with appropriate gestures. We mentioned that, and they imitate certain gestures too. So if you do something, they might do something. Or if you make a face, they might make a face. Moving on to fine motor skills, they mouth toys. So kids are still exploring sensory-wise by putting things in their mouth from 6 to 12 months. They might reach with accuracy. So birth to 6 months, they're a little wiggly with accuracy, but 6 to 12 months, they're honing in on that accuracy. They play at midline, and they can transfer from hand to hand. So remember, midline's the middle of your body, and they can transfer things. This is a favorite of every parent, which is not true at all. They love to bang toys to see if it makes a sound, but that's developmentally appropriate, actually. They wave a toy in the air. They can roll a ball to another caregiver, and the back and forth play starts to begin. They use fingertips to grasp objects. So yesterday we talked about the whole palm using it. Now they start to use fingertips. This is a pincer grasp, so they start to use their fingertips. So it's more refined and a more mature way to do it. And they point. Remember the other week when we talked about joint attention? This is where 6 to 12 months children start to point. Oh, the flowers. Oh, you want me to look at the flowers. So they're sharing. That's very social, but they want to share with you. Gross motor wise, which is big body movements, the child can sit independently, and in order to do that, they can typically do that on their own, meaning they're rolling on the ground, getting up to sitting independently as well. So they can go from rolling on the ground to sitting independently. And remember, this is 6 to 12 months, so a lot happens in those 6 months. They can stand with support. This is where they would like cruise on some furniture. Cruising means holding onto a piece of furniture and they're like sidestepping. And that's very important for hips to develop muscle around the hips to walk. And they're playing with walking. At this age, they can walk with holding an adult's hand, or sometimes, especially towards 12 months, at 12 months is when kids can walk with holding a grown-up's hand. Or again, we talked about those like baby strollers or shopping carts or any of the help aids for baby walking. And again, that's the same movement, that's push and pull. We talked about that a few weeks ago too. They all go together. And a child also is crawling on all fours by about 10 months old. And remember, you want to look for mirroring on each side of the body. So my hand and opposite leg are going to go forward and then switch. So you want to really look out for, are they doing the same thing on one side of the body as they're doing on the other side of the body? A child whose one leg might lag behind and they're not using it, or a child who scoots like this to get around instead of crawling, you would probably want to talk to your pediatrician about that, or if you know an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, you can start there too. And really promote crawling. A way to do that would be work with a tunnel. I know there are a lot on Craigslist or eBay, or IKEA has some really affordable ones. I know in my neighborhood there's like a family group that exchanges toys. So something like that if you don't want to purchase one yourself. But those are great. In regards to actual play, although this is all play for a child, they play peekaboo. They play with toys. So like the dino usually has a ball in, so they would start to play with toys. They clap, and remember, clapping is at midline, and it's the same thing on the same side of the body. They can play with dolls. They don't have an imaginative play yet, so the dolls wouldn't be doing anything, but they would hold the doll with the head upright. Sensory play is really big for this age. Swinging a child up in the air, that's all sensory play. And also this goes along with food. Messy play with food is phenomenal. At this age, 6 to 12 months, a child should be able to start to use their fingers to feed themselves. And if you're a really clean parent, this is going to be hard for you or caregiver, but let them messy play. It goes so far later on in life. Again, we covered a ton of stuff in way longer than I would want you to have to listen to, but thanks for hanging in there. This is a really exciting time of life for a child, and tomorrow we'll talk about 12 months a year on, but chunk it together a little bit more. Have a great day and have fun playing with your infant. All right, bye-bye.